The wind off the shivering sea had grown bold, slicing across the wall with a hollow, iron edge. Yet it could not chill the chamber where fires roared in twin hearths and lamplight washed the stone in amber. Jon Snow stood at the center of that glow, a black shadow cast in flicker and flame, his cloak of direwolf fur hanging heavy from his shoulders. Around him the senior officers of the Night's Watch, Ed Tollett, Donal Noy's successor at the forge, Maester Aemon's quill-sharp heir Cotter Pine, rangy archers, scarred stewards, even the wildling Tormund Giantsbane, were gathered in a rough circle, their faces half lost to smoke and somber doubt. Somewhere beyond the cracked shutters, Ghost howled, and the wolves in the woods answered, unseen but near. "No king may hold the wall," Jon said, his voice raw with weariness and frost. "Our vows bind us to the realm to protect the living. We swore to take no crowns." "We swore to serve the realm," Ed replied, pale as chalk beneath the soot of countless nights' watch. "And the realm has forgotten us. The south is bled white by Lannister and Tyrell and Frey. Crowns grow slick in the blood of children. The small folk pray to kings who do not hear. If the Night's Watch does not look to itself, there will be no realm left to protect." The assertion hung between them like a suspended guillotine. Jon's gray eyes, cool and steady, drifted to Samwell Tarly's parchment-strewn desk. Ravens had flown from Winterfell, from White Harbor, from Barrowton and Carhold, each bearing news of fresh turmoil. Bolton men mustering against Karstark raiders, Umber banners half-torn in skirmishes with Queen's men, lords arguing whose claim on Winter's crown was the truer. All the while, white shadows stirred beyond the forests of the haunted lands. The dead were marching again. Jon had seen them, heard them, felt them in the marrow of his broken ribs the night he fell beneath traitor blades. He ran a leather-scarred hand through coal dark curls. "A crown? For me?" He almost laughed, but the sound would have cracked apart into something brittle. "The Watch will fracture. There are still men who think me half a Stark, half a ghost, scarcely a brother at all." Tormund took one deliberate step forward, great brown beard catching sparks. "Ghosts or no, we follow strength. I've seen you swing Longclaw against dead things, boy. Seen you kneel beside a dying giant and close his eyes. I crossed the wall for my folk, but I would cross the world again if it meant my sons had a chance to wake to another dawn. Give the Watch a king, and you might give the North hope." Hope. Jon tasted the word like cold ash. He remembered the ice cellars beneath Winterfell, the names of his sisters whispered alongside the names of the dead. He remembered Ygritte's kiss, and the bitter truth that love could be buried beneath snow just as surely as bones. Yet he heard other voices too, Robb's bright laughter echoing across training yards, Ned Stark's steady baritone guiding him through sword forms at dawn. "Protect them. If I cannot come home, protect them." His father, yes, his father, had meant the realm, the living, the good, not merely a wall of nameless vows. Cotter Pine cleared his throat, parchment crinkling. "We have provisions for 6 moons at best, Lord Snow. The winter storms have torn our outer granaries. The south denies every request for coin or seed. Without open trade to the north, independent trade, we starve by first thaw. Or worse," Ed murmured. "We fall to others who do not starve so easily." At that, every man in the hall felt the touch of unseen eyes. Blue, depthless, merciless. The White Walkers marched with storms at their heels. They were a truth the South still called myth, but men at this table had bled against the myth and buried children along the milkwater. Jon crossed to the nearest hearth and stared into the flames. Ash whispered upward, transforming into orange snow. "An independent kingdom requires lords to kneel," he said. "Who among the North will bend the knee to black cloaks and broken oaths? The Watch is made of criminals, outcasts, bastards. Ask them to lift us above their own blood, and they will spit." "Aye," Tormund said. "They will spit, but they will also bleed if the dead come knocking. You offer them something better than pride, you offer survival." Silence answered. It seemed the stones themselves had paused to draw breath. Somewhere in that hush, a faint drip of melting snow fell from the beams overhead, marking slow seconds. Jon spoke again, softly now. "Say it could be done. Say the watch claims the north, from the wall northward, and I wear a crown hammered from old chain links and Stuart's brass. What then? Do we ride south and parley with lords who call us oath-breakers? Do we seat wildlings at their tables? Do we beg grain and send ravens for girls to warm our beds in gloomy keeps? Cotter's parchment-bound fingers trembled. We do what we have always done, defend the realm. Only this time the realm begins here. If we stand as king and kingdom both, we can call banners in our own name. The Karstarks detest the Boltons. The Mormonts owe you a debt of honor. The Umbers hunger for a fight. Even Lady Sansa. Jon's heart flared, pain or passion he could not tell. Lady Sansa is a prisoner in Winterfell, or if rumor is true, she rides beneath the wings of a dragon queen beyond the narrow sea. He sighed. Rumor does not feed men. Rumor can become rallying cry, Ed countered. The North remembers, and the North remembers you. He turned, gaze sweeping the hall. And what of the wall? Our strength is here. We cannot defend all the castles, not Eastwatch, not even Shadow Tower, not while supplies fail. Then we do as the first builders did, said Donal's successor, hammer-broad shoulders gleaming with sweat despite the chill. We seal the weaker keeps, garrison the rest, and send rangers south to recruit. Offer pardons, land, warmth. The promise of wheat fields when spring returns. Men will come. Some will come, Jon agreed, and others will ride against us. They already ride against us, Ed observed. Bolton riders stole a wagon train bound for the Shadow Tower 3 nights past. House Bolton claims the watch is fat with southern gold and planning to sell wildlings as thralls. Lies travel faster than ravens, it seems, but they still travel south. Jon ran a thumb along the rough iron of Longclaw's barehead pommel, half dreaming of Jeor Mormont's voice. The old bear would have cursed, then laughed, then told him to do the thing that saved most lives, even if it cost his own. Jon swallowed. I will not lead men into glory, he said, almost to himself. I will lead them into night. A crown will not shield them from wind or claw. But a crown may shield them from hunger, Cotter insisted. A crown can sign trade pacts, levy duties, seize holdfasts with grain stores to share. A crown can call banners and speak with one voice. A voice lords will heed when they will not heed black cloaks. The iron latch of the door groaned. PYP, the quick-tongued lover of tall tales, stepped in with cheeks aflame, breath pluming silver. Ravens from Mole's town, he panted, shoving a fistful of damp parchment across the threshold. 200 small folk at the gates, asking to swear the black for shelter. 3 shepherd families ride behind, and more on the King's Road. They bring what grain they can. Jon took one scroll, wax seal cracked by cold. His eyes flicked down the words. Fire, famine, storm. They come to live, he murmured. But they come to die if we cannot feed them. He felt the weight of every gaze. Wolves had circled him once before, traitor blades gleaming beneath black cloaks. But these eyes were different. They were not hungry for his fall. They were hungry for something to believe in. When he spoke, it was a whisper, yet thundered in the bones of the keep. If I take this crown, it will be made of vows, not gold. We will be a kingdom of outcasts and broken oaths, of free folk and afraid folk. We will hold the cold end of the world and pray it does not break us. I will not rule for glory. I will rule because winter leaves no choice. Ed bowed his head. Then let winter crown you. Tormund's fist struck heart to breastplate. You have my voice, and my axe. Cotter stepped back, unrolled a black silk ribbon threaded with ancient iron nails, trophies once hammered into the old oath boards. One by one the officers took a nail, heated it in the hearths, and pressed it to the ribbon, binding the silk with their burnt flesh. Smoke rose like incense, acrid and alive. When the last nail was set, Cotter draped the ribbon over Jon's shoulders. In iron and bone, he intoned. We pledge to Jon of House Snow, Lord of Winter's Watch, King of the True North, first of his name, breaker of the old oath, defender of the living. Jon felt the ribbon's weight, scorched and solemn. He thought of another crown, of bronze leaves and direwolf teeth once worn by Robb Stark. His brother had died beneath that crown. Would he join him soon, in frostlit halls beyond mortal sun? Perhaps. Yet Robb's ghost seemed to place a steady hand on his shoulder now, and whisper, "Go on." He stepped forward to the long oaken table, reached for a rust-stained helm recovered from the Watch's vaults, a relic said to predate Aegon's conquest. Twin direwolves forged nose to nose above the brow. He lifted it high so the firelight danced against pitted steel. "Then in iron and bone," Jon answered, voice gaining strength, "I accept. But know this, I am no rightful king. I am the sword drawn in darkness. I will break before I bend, if breaking saves one child from the cold. Will you stand beside me, brothers? Will you bear that burden?" A hum, deep as the earth, rose from the gathered men. "Aye." Jon lowered the helm onto raven hair. It sat heavy, but comfortable, as though he had worn it since birth. A hush swept the hall, followed by the crackle of flame and the distant rumble of ice. Ghost's howl cut through the rafters, and in that long, trembling note the room exhaled as one. It was done. Night closed over Castle Black like a curtain of crushed velvet. Above, a skein of stars burned hard and cold, indifferent to crowns or kingdoms. Yet the wall glowed faintly with torchlight, candles marching along its parapets like beads of fire upon a frozen spine. Jon. King Jon now, though the words felt foreign, walked that spine with Ghost at his heel, the direwolf's white fur luminous against the stark blue of moonlit ice. At Eastwatch, fires winked, answering the signal. Farther west, Shadow Tower lanterns flickered. The few garrisons left were fewer than necessary, yet tonight they felt bound by more than stone. They felt bound by a king's oath. Jon leaned against a merlin, staring north. The haunted forest stretched black and endless, wind-scoured. Somewhere beyond the first ridge, others moved like specters in snowfall. He could feel them, an ache in scars old and new. He had died once, had breathed no breath. Back then, there had been no light in the dark. Now the world held a guttering spark, and he was its keeper. Footsteps crunched. Ed joined him, cloaked in sable furs. "Your Grace," he said, with the faintest of smirks, as though tasting poison and finding it oddly pleasant. Jon winced. "Spare me. I feel no grace." "Good. Grace is expensive, and we can't afford it." They stood side by side, the wind hissing in their ears. Below, the outer yard bustled despite the hour. New recruits quartered in the old stables, wildling mothers shepherding pale-eyed babes toward warmth, smiths already reforging shattered swords into scythes that could take a wight's head clean. "I counted the torches," Ed said. 39 along the wall, 10 at Eastwatch, 7 at Shadow Tower. Jon's breath steamed. In the dark, 39 may look like 300, perhaps, but in daylight, they will look precisely like 39. "Then pray the dead do not march by day." Ed sighed. "I would pray, but I fear the gods no longer take calls. Still, we do have ravens. And a king." Jon turned. "Letters will go south at dawn. One to Lady Mormont. She once wrote me of her iron loyalty. One to Lord Wyman, though." "He may eat the raven," Ed offered helpfully. "Still send two." Jon's lips twitched. The jest felt good in the chill. "Two. And one to Sansa, wherever she is. The wind may carry that one, if no wings can." Below them, Tormund's laughter boomed as he oversaw the stacking of fresh-cut timbers. Wildlings and crows worked shoulder to shoulder. A ragged girl in a bearskin dragged a log twice her size. A brother with a missing ear lifted the other end. No banners, no sigils, only survival. Jon's chest tightened. Were they forging a new order or damning the old? He thought of Maester Aemon's last words. "Kill the boy and let the man be born." Jon had killed many boys inside himself, yet still they whispered fears in the night. He said, "When dawn breaks, I ride for Queen's Crown." Ed blinked. "Alone." "Not alone. With an honor guard. We set up a winter court there, halfway between Wall and Winterfell. Refugees will gather. Caravan routes can form. Grain can flow. We must hold that tower if the North is to heed us. You plant your flag in a ruin, Ed noted. Appropriate for a king of shadows. Jon shrugged. Better a ruin we own than a keep taken from another. Ghost growled low, hackles raised. Ed froze. Across the moonlit snow, 3 riders emerged from the treeline, cloaks snapping like wounded birds. Their horses steamed. One carried a banner of flayed man, House Bolton. The other bore no colors. Between them rode a smaller figure in gray wool, face half-masked. Jon's hand fell to Longclaw's hilt. To arms, he whispered, though no horns sounded. Brothers along the ramparts knocked arrows. Wildlings lifted spears. The riders halted at the gates. After a tense exchange, the smaller figure dismounted and threw back her hood. Auburn hair spilled like sunset fire. Sansa, Jon breathed, breath fogging. Fear and hope tangled in his throat. Ed exhaled. The gods answer yet. Or play cruel games, Jon muttered. But he was moving, legs pounding down the icy steps 2 at a time. Ghost vaulted beside him, silent as snowfall. At the yard's edge, Sansa Stark stood alone, cheeks wind-burnt, eyes fierce. She looked older, unbreakable. Behind her, the Bolton men held grim smiles, envoys or hostages. Jon did not care. They faced one another, brother and sister, or something more complicated than blood could name. She opened her mouth, but he pulled her into an embrace before words could ruin the moment. Ghost circled protectively, nose brushing the hem of her cloak. I feared you dead, Jon murmured into her hair. I feared worse, she answered. Yet here we are. He drew back, studying her. Why come with Bolton knights? They think me their pawn still, but I carry a message none of them understand. Jon's brow furrowed. Speak then. I have little time and less patience for Ramsay's riddles. Her gaze hardened. The Boltons know of your new crown. They mean to destroy you before your roots take hold. A host marches from Winterfell even now. 2,000 men, spears and dogs. They reach Queen's Crown in 3 days. Cold bit deeper than any wind. So soon. Ramsay moves quick when he smells fear, Sansa said, voice flat. But fear is a blade that cuts both ways. Your independence frightens him. If he thought you remained neutral, he would bide his time. Ed, having caught up, eyed the Bolton knights. 2,000, he echoed. We have perhaps 300 fit to ride. Then we do not meet him in open field, Jon said. We hold Queen's Crown. Let winter fight for us. Guerrilla strikes in the woods. Burn his supply wagons. Cut his dogs loose into the storm. Already tactics unfurled in his mind like banners in windless halls. Sansa drew a crumpled parchment from her sleeve. Lady Mormont sends this, stating her sword is yours, and House Mormont rides tomorrow with 100 spears. Wyman Manderley moves as well, though slowly, and the mountain clans muster for you, drawn by whispers of a Stark and a snowborn king together. Her smile was pale lightning. The North may yet remember. Jon took the letter, folding it close to heart. He looked to the ramparts, where torches still burned. Brothers stared down, faces stark masks of fire-lit determination. In that instant, the crown he wore seemed less a burden, more a promise. Welcome home, sister, he said. Before the dawn, the Night's Watch gathered in the high courtyard, torches guttering. Word spread swift. The king's sister returned, Bolton host on the march, north rising. Men who had scarcely spoken names beyond their crimes now murmured hope, an unfamiliar taste upon the tongue. Wildlings sharpened axes, whistling low tunes of ancient sorrow. Even the old ravens in the rookery croaked restless. Jon addressed them from the raised stone where oath-takers once knelt. His helm he left behind. He wanted them to see his face. Brothers, free folk, friends. He began, voice carrying on the hush. We are called traitors by men who flay their lords alive. We are called oathbreakers by men who break every vow but those to their own appetites. Let them call. We stand for the living. We stand for children waking in warm beds, for mothers gathering wheat beneath the sun, for songs that outlive storms. If a crown can buy that future, then I will wear it. But I cannot forge that future alone. Ghost padded forward, red eyes gleaming. Jon laid a hand upon the direwolf's snowy ruff. The dead march, he said softly, and they do not care for crowns. They will come for us all, Bolton, Mormont, Umber, Montague, small folk and giant, thief and lord. We meet them at Queen's Crown first, then at Winterfell if need be, then wherever the long night leads. Stand with me, and I swear by every god, old, new, nameless, that I will stand with you. He drew Longclaw and lifted it high, the blade catching torch flare like dawn in steel. A heartbeat silence, then a shout, a wildling woman's voice, raw with passion. For the Snow King! Another cry, and another, until the courtyard rang with ragged cheers, rising like storm surf against a cliff. Brothers slammed sword hilts to shields, wildlings stomped, direwolves howled. Even the ravens screamed their approval. Sansa watched from a balcony above, icy wind tumbling strands of auburn across her cheek. She felt a tremor of awe and dread. She felt the world tilting, as if some great will creaked forward and no man could halt it now. Below, Jon's eyes found hers. They shared a silent vow, family reborn in frost and flame. By mid-morning, preparations whirled like snow devils. Donal's successor hammered rails for supply sleds. Tormund drilled recruits in shield wall tactics, his laughter booming whenever a green boy toppled into powdery drifts. Samwell Tarly, cheeks ruddy, conducted raven flights south, each message bearing news of the new kingdom and pleas for grain. Maesters at White Harbor, Old Town, even King's Landing would read those words soon. Whether they laughed or panicked, Jon could not say. Near the armory, small smithies smoldered under canvas. Wildling girls shaped arrowheads from scrap iron while steward boys carved shafts. Bowstrings sang, testing for strength. The yard smelled of pitch pine, hot iron, and the metallic tang of cold fear. In the old Lord Commander's solar, Jon, Ed, Sansa, and Tormund bent over a tallow-stained map. Ed traced the King's Road with a dagger tip. Bolton host here, he said, moving south, to Queen's Crown by this fork. If we fell trees along the ridge, we force them onto the bog. Heavy dogs will bog down, armor too. We strike from the pines, retreat north across frozen flats. Then melt the crossing behind. Flood the flats, Sansa asked. Streams run beneath the ice, Jon explained. A few well-placed charges, black powder from Eastwatch's stores, could break the crust, send half the host floundering. Tormund grinned. Let them drown in their own steel. Dead men make poor flayers. Sansa touched the map, gaze lingering on Queen's Crown. But if Ramsay gets there first... He will not, Jon said, because I will ride out tonight. A swift party, rangers, wildling outriders, spearwives. We reach Queen's Crown by dusk tomorrow, garrison the tower. Then we wait. And if Ramsay bypasses the tower and rides for the wall, he will find a wall ready and wildlings eager, and a king who knows the passes. Tormund clapped Jon's shoulder. I pup, and I will ride with you. Can't have a kitten guarding the henhouse alone. Jon smirked, though worry gnawed. Take 50 of your best. I need sharp eyes. Eyes I have. The wildling winked. We'll bring some of the bow women too. Wolves of the snow. They'll sing Ramsay a lullaby of arrows. They dispersed, tasks in tow. Sansa lingered last. You trust him, she said. With my life. Jon paused. Is that foolish? She considered. No. He is who he is. Straight as the spear he carries. A smile flickered. Thank you. For what? For not asking me to stay behind. He met her gaze. You wear the wolf's head as surely as I do. Queen's Crown is mine for war, but Winterfell... He swallowed. Winterfell is yours. Her eyes glimmered. Winterfell is ours. He nodded. That one word, ours, seemed a stronger vow than any crown could grant. The ride south began beneath a sky-bruised violet. Snow dusted the King's Road, but hard-packed ruts made swift going. Jon led astride a gray courser, long claw across his lap. Ghost loped ahead, white shadow pacing the ditch. Tormund's scouts flanked the party, 30 in all, Crow veterans in black leathers, wildlings clad in furs, Mormont spears under shalebark shields. A ragtag host for a ragtag king. Behind, Castle Black shrank until the wall's pale immensity swallowed it. Jon felt each league like a rope unspooling from his heart. This path once led him south in chains, in brotherhood, in exile. Now it led him to claim a ruin and defy a bastard lord. Night fell swift. They camped in the lee of an abandoned holdfast, walls half-eaten by moss. Fires burned low. They dared not draw wandering eyes. Jon sat apart, cleaning Longclaw with oil, each swipe a quiet prayer. Ghost dozed, ears twitching. Sansa settled beside him, cloak wrapped tight. "Do you ever tire of the cold?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "I was born to it. I was born to Winterfell, and still I tire." She watched sparks wink upward. "When I fled Ramsay, I thought I'd forgotten how to hope. Then I heard you lived. That hope will cost," Jon warned. "This war may be bloodier than anything we have seen." "I know." She stared at her gloved hands. "But I would rather bleed for something I choose than cower for something forced upon me." Jon sheathed Longclaw, metal sliding smooth. "We choose together." Sansa reached into her satchel, produced cloth bundles. "The Mormont girl sent these." She unwrapped twin brooches of bronze, stark direwolf heads, mouths open in silent snarl. She said kings and queens need sigils. She fastened one to Jon's cloak, below the ribbon of burnt nails. He pinned the other to hers. Snowflakes began to drift, slow as ash. Somewhere beyond the trees an owl hooted, solemn sentinel of the wilds. Jon leaned back, letting cold starlight wash his face. "Do you remember Mother?" Sansa asked suddenly, voice barely a whisper. He hesitated. "I remember her eyes, watching me and never seeing me. Sad truth, but a truth he had made peace with. But I remember her songs at eventide. I dream of her voice sometimes. And Father's." Her breath shook. "It feels like they watch us still. Perhaps they do." Jon studied the night sky. "If they do, may they be proud." He thought of Ned's stern smile, of Catelyn's wary gaze, of Robb marching away beneath a northern spring. He thought of Bran's laughter, Arya's fierce grin. A family shattered, yet perhaps not broken beyond all healing. Queen's Crown rose from morning mist like a wounded giant, half-sunken keep and leaning tower overgrown with nettles. Crows wheeled above, startled by the rider's approach. Jon reined in on the causeway, evaluating walls patched by generations of squatters. Ruin, yes, but stone ruin, strong enough to weather a siege if manned with grit. Tormund whistled, ugly as a troll's arse, but tall enough to piss on. Jon dismounted, boots crunching frost. He strode through the broken gate, Ghost padding at heel. Within, a courtyard of cracked flagstones lay strewn with wagon wheels, burnt barley sheaves, frost-filled hearths. But a well still glimmered near the tower base, and root cellars yawned beneath trapdoors intact. He climbed the spiral stair, each step echoing hollow. At the roof, wind cut fierce, but the view was unbroken. King's Road ribboned south to a smudge of smoke. Ramsay's vanguard, perhaps a day's march afar. East, the weeping water shimmered frozen. West, birch woods cloaked low ridges perfect for ambush. Jon turned to the scouts. "We build palisades here, dig wolf pits along the road, archers to the roofs, boiling oil, whatever we can muster. When Ramsay comes, let his dogs choke on our walls." Orders flew. Mormont soldiers unpacked timbers. Wildlings sharpened stakes. Sansa directed stewards to sweep the tower chambers, convert storerooms into infirmaries. Smoke soon rose from fresh chimneys, smelling of pine and hope. Jon knelt atop the roof, resting palm to weathered stone. He felt a heartbeat in the ruin, ancient storm kings, first men, whispers of forgotten queens. He whispered back, "Lend me strength." He rose, cloak snapping, and gazed south where the enemy marched. Between here and the wall lay only leagues of snow and frail men's courage. Beyond them lay winter, endless and patient. Yet for the first time since he bled upon traitor knives, Jon Snow felt his pulse quicken not with dread, but with purpose. King of the true North, a title carved in frost. It would melt or endure as deeds determined. And deeds would begin now, with steel and flame and the unwavering hope of those he served. He descended, voice ringing with new command. Archers to the ramparts, rangers to the pines. Let every man and woman who can hold blade or bow find their place. Ramsay Bolton will arrive by sunset tomorrow. We greet him with cold steel and colder resolve. Cheers rumbled like distant thunder. Sansa met his gaze across the yard, nodding. Ghost barked, a sharp cry that echoed off stone. Jon drew Longclaw, lifting it high so sunlight caught the pale Valyrian ripples. Snowflakes danced around the blade, tiny mirrors of light. And should we fall, he vowed aloud, we will fall fighting for a dawn worth dying for. The words soared skyward, carried north by winter wind, south by hopeful hearts, into silence and storm alike. Thus was the kingdom of the Night's Watch declared, not in gold or parchment, but in oath and iron, in blood still warm against unyielding cold. And beneath pale clouds, Jon Snow, the Crow King, took his stand at the edge of the world, ready to hold the line until the stars themselves burned out. Snow fell in thin, drifting skeins that turned the air to pale gauze, softening the ruin of Queen's Crown until its leaning tower seemed carved from bleached bone. Jon Snow walked the perimeter at first light, boots crunching over frost-set mud, his breath fogging silver before the slow dawn. Every few steps he halted to study the palisade lines. Sharpened stakes hammered into frozen earth, trip lines fashioned from gut and bell wire, pits disguised beneath pine branches where iron caltrops waited like the teeth of winter itself. Wind moaned through arrow slits, carrying the scent of pitch and smoke and distant pine sap split by axes. At the inner yard a score of wildling girls stacked cut saplings, their shoulders hunched beneath shaggy furs. Off to one side, a pair of brothers in black argued over how best to hinge a crude mantlet. Donal Noy's successor waded in with a curse and showed them, splinters snapping beneath his broad hands. On the tower roof archers practiced quick knock and loose drills, their arrows thudding into straw bales painted with crude flayed men. Each thud echoed down the spiral and out across the courtyard like a battlefield drum. Sansa found Jon at the half-collapsed smithy, where sparks hissed skyward in sudden, bright constellations. She drew her cloak tight, though the forge heat brushed her cheeks pink. "You did not come to breakfast," she said. "I ate earlier." Jon rested a hand on the rim of the anvil, watching the smith's hammer rise and fall. "Bread, jerky, dried apple. Enough." "Not enough," she countered, voice low. "You cannot swing Longclaw on air. I had stew brought, goat and barley. I'll fetch a bowl." He shook his head. Later, his eyes roamed the distant tree line, where early sun cast long blue shadows. Scouts should be back soon. If Ramsay broke camp at dawn, we'll see them by midday. Sansa followed his gaze. "We will see their smoke before that." She waited, then touched his sleeve. "The garrison believes in you. I believe in you, but they need to see you rest, eat, laugh. Anything to remind them you are mortal, not a ghost in iron." Jon's lips curved, faint as moonlight on ice. "If they knew how heavy kingship feels, they would beg me never to laugh." His gaze softened. "Yet you are right. When the scouts return, I will sit with the men. Break bread, share stew. A king who eats beside his folk is worth 10 who feast behind curtains." She nodded, relief mingling with pride, and left him to his watch. Ed Tollett rode in at mid-morning, cloak rimed with hoarfrost, horse steaming. Behind him 2 rangers dragged a makeshift sled freighted with burlap sacks. Jon met them at the gate. "Supplies?" Ed rasped, sliding stiffly from the saddle. Tormund's crew hit a Bolton foraging party 5 leagues south. 10 dead flayers, 2 prisoners, 1 wagon of oats and dry beans. He nodded toward the sled. "Not enough for winter, But enough for today. Jon pulled aside the tarp. Frost had crusted the grain but not ruined it. Casualties? None on our side, Ed said. A spearwife took a crossbow bolt through her braids. She cut the braid free and kept fighting. Named Runa Beartooth. I told her the braid will grow back. She told me flayers do not. He rubbed his nose, eyes watering. One prisoner claims Ramsay rides with 800 men, not 2,000. Could be he lies, or could be Bolton mustered half his boast. Or he split forces, Jon muttered. Send the prisoners to the cellars, under guard, gentle hands. One may speak truth if given broth and warmth. He studied the sled. We should grind some oats tonight. Hot porridge before battle lifts hearts. Ed managed a wry grin, or sinks them depending on the cook. Then the humor drained. They'll reach us by sunset or shortly after. Road signs of churned mud, dog prints, boot marks, heavy columns moving quick. Jon felt the day tighten around his ribs. He dismissed Ed to rest and strode for the tower stair. On the roof he found Mormont archers bracing their yew-bows against the parapet, eyes narrowed against blowing flakes. Beyond the wall of timber stakes the land dipped into a shallow bog crusted with brittle ice. Beyond that, bare birch trunks marched in ragged rows, stark silhouettes against a pearl-gray sky. He pictured Bolton flags punching through the tree-line. Pink on crimson, the grinning man without skin. He pictured hounds baying wild, teeth dripping, and horsemen wrapped in fur-lined mail. He remembered Ramsay's letters, words written in a laughing hand. I am coming for you, bastard. I will cut the wildling from your belly myself. He wondered if Ramsay still laughed in the cold, or if ice had begun to crack his grin. A boot scraped behind him. Sansa emerged, bearing a covered bowl. Steam coiled. Eat, she ordered. No plea this time. Jon accepted. Hot goat stew chased chill from his gums. He ate in silence, watching the forest. Word spreads, she said after a time. Raven replies. Lord Manderley marches from White Harbor with a levy of green boys and fat knights. He calls it his choir of wolves. Lord Serwyn rides behind, and Lady Hornwood sends her retainers. They will not reach us in time. Jon swallowed broth. They may reach Winterfell in time, once Ramsay's host is broken. She studied him sideways. Is there hope of that, truly? There must be. He dipped bread. If we lose here, the wall has no friends betwixt neck and sea. The watch falls alone. And if we win, then the flayed man burns, and the dire wolf flies again. He said it softly, but the words rang in the cold air like distant bells. By late afternoon the wind shifted, bringing the fetid stench of wet dogs and unwashed men. Scouts lit signal torches atop the outer ridge. 3 quick flashes. Jon was on the battlements before the last spark dimmed. Through the birches he saw a smear of color. Bolton crimson, oiled bright against snow. The column poured along the King's Road, a centipede of pikes and shields, with ragged outriders fanning the flanks. At intervals lumbered supply wagons, tar-covered to keep provisions dry. Snow churned beneath iron-shod hooves. Dogs strained at leashes, tongues lolling. You were right about numbers, Ed, Jon murmured. Closer to 800. Enough to drown them if they breached the palisade. Ed tapped the parapet. If Ramsay believes we still number 200, he'll rush. Overconfidence is a feast best served hot. Jon signaled the hornmen. 3 blasts echoed, long, low, mournful. Rangers melted into shadowed woods, bows strung. Spearwives crawled to covered pits, breath feathering through slats. Archers on the roof knocked arrows, strings creaking. Behind the tower, Sansa oversaw the evacuation of children and infirm to cellar crypts. She pressed a kiss to each small brow that passed her, murmuring courage. Ghost wove through the throng, nuzzling trembling hands, red eyes soft as embers. The first Bolton outrider reached the bog's near edge at sundown. He reined in, scenting something amiss. The dog handlers urged hounds forward. Frost cracked like splintering glass beneath paws. A dog yelped as ice gave, then another. Soon half the pack flailed in frigid slurry, howls echoing through birch trunks. Bolton spearmen surged to pull beasts free. Arrows hissed from the trees, thudding into fur and mail. Panic rippled. Ramsay Bolton rode up amidst the chaos, distinguished by a sable cloak lined in ermine and a smiling half-moon of blades at his belt. He watched two hounds drown without flinching, then shouted orders. Crossbowmen formed ranks, loosing blindly into dusk. Shafts rattled off tree bark, harmless. John saw this from the parapet and signaled again. Oil casks, hidden in deadfall along the bog's rim, were tipped. Viscous black rivers trickled across the thin ice, pooling around flailing men and beasts. A lantern arced from the treetops. Fire blossomed amber, then green. Wildfire stolen from a forgotten cache at Eastwatch, thinned with lamp oil to slow the burn. The bog became a screaming, seething mire of emerald flame, reflecting off every icicle like shards of shattered jade. Bolton officers shrieked for buckets. None came. Supply wagons had water, but the road was clogged by panicked mounts trying to wheel in tight formation. In the confusion, a second ranger party struck from the western pines, torches thrust into wagon covers. Tar ignited with a whoosh, sending mushroom plumes skyward. Etalid stood just behind John, expression flat. "First blood," he muttered. "But not victory." Ramsay rallied quick. Drummers beat a harsh cadence. Reserve squadrons cut south, seeking firmer ground beyond the bog. John traced their path, exactly where he'd hoped. He raised a gloved hand. From hidden trenches, a volley of javelins sang into twilight. Riders toppled. Horses screamed, legs snapping in unseen pits lined with stakes. Those who pressed on found wolf pits disguised beneath snow. Mounts plunged chest-deep, impaling themselves. Men clawed frozen earth as arrows ended them. But the Bolton main force did not break. Cohorts peeled off to flank through higher ground eastward, out of range of traps. They advanced in shield walls, their dogs gone wild with the scent of blood. Horns blared a challenge. "They'll push the palisade inside the hour," Ed said, grim. John nodded. "Archers to ground positions. Hold roof for wildfire crews only." He descended the stair, calling commands. Firelight flickered in arrow slits, casting his shadow huge along stone. At the gate, he found Tormund adjusting his bearskin helm. "Time to dance?" the giant asked. "Time." John clasped forearms. "Hold them at the stakes. Fall back only when I signal." Tormund grinned, teeth flashing. "I'll fall back when the ground falls from under me." He strode off, bellowing at his raiders. "Who wants flayed man meat for supper?" Sansa appeared like a wraith, cloak swirling. "I'll take command of the inner yard," she said before John could protest. "If they breach, children must be moved to the tower." Maesters prepared, water lines formed. "I know Winterfell's passages. I learned them well." Her eyes hardened. "I will not hide while others bleed." John saw Catelyn's fire in that gaze, and Ned's unspoken iron. He nodded once. "Keep the horn with you. 3 short blasts if the walls fall. And if we win?" He tried to smile. "Then we feast on oats and goat stew." She managed a snort. "I shall cherish the thought." Then she was gone, barking at stewards. Dusk slipped into night while fires raged along the bog. A thin cloud cover glowed eerie green from reflected wildfire, casting Bolton armor in sickly hues. But they pressed forward, disciplined, stepping over charred comrades. The first shield wall reached the palisade and rammed iron-shod mauls against stakes. The timber shuddered. Pitch oil rained down from parapets, followed by torches. Flames licked up shields. Men screamed, flinging burning planks aside. More surged in, throwing corpses over fires to smother them. A dog pack darted through gaps, slavering. John met them. Ghost leapt first, crushing a hound's throat in snowy jaws. John's sword followed. Longclaw flashed silver, shearing a mastiff's head in a single stroke. Behind him, Mormont shields locked into square, spears stabbing downward in brutal thrusts. A Bolton axeman vaulted the stakes, roaring. Jon parried, blade ringing. He felt the jolt up his arm, felt ribs ache where traitor knives had once found flesh. He twisted, drove pommel into the man's visor, cracked bone. In the lull, he glimpsed Tormund ripping a pike from a foe and swinging it like a staff, clearing space for spearwives who jabbed at exposed joints. Snow fell harder, turning the yard to churned slush tinged pink. Steam curled where torch and blood met icy ground. Arrows hissed overhead, friend and foe alike. Jon lost count of time. Battle became a thunderous present. A horn sounded, Bolton signal. Fresh troops flooded west flank. "Pull to the tower," Jon shouted. Mormont Square withdrew step by step, keeping formation. Wildlings covered retreat with fu. Riotous axework. Dogs snapped at shields. Arrows ended them. A spear kissed Jon's thigh, glancing off boiled leather. He barely felt it. They reached inner yard just as the outer stake splintered. Bolton men poured through gaps, howling. But Murderer's moon had risen, waxing gibbous, pale. Its light danced on pooled wildfire still burning green in distant bog, reflecting in Bolton eyes as they beheld the central keep. Stone daunting even in ruin, windows blazing with torchfire. Sansa directed crossbowmen from balcony rails, loosing quarrels at any who broke formation. Barrels of sand lined corridors, ready for fire, buckets of brine for wounded. She wore a mail shirt beneath her cloak now, Ned's old gorget fitted to her throat. When Jon staggered and spattered with blood, she only nodded, relief masked by calm efficiency. "How bad?" she asked. He wiped Longclaw clean. "Worse for them." He winced as Maester Cotter bound his thigh. "Gate won't hold an hour, though. We collapse it behind us and bottleneck at the tower archway. They cannot field shield walls in that funnel. Archers on the balcony will have clear sight," Sansa said. "We melt the stair if necessary. Oil, torches, rocks." Jon studied her, sudden tenderness below fatigue. "You have your mother's courage." She blinked moisture away. "And my father's stubbornness." She touched his cheek gently, smearing soot. "Hold, Jon. Hold until dawn. Reinforcements may come." He thought dawn too distant to measure and reinforcements a child's wish, but he nodded. Until dawn. Outside, Ramsay surveyed the ruin of first assault. His cloak tips smoldered from stray ember. He smiled as though fires were freckles. Beside him roved 3 brawny men in dogskins, leashes looped to their belts though the packs now lay slaughtered. "A spirited welcome," Ramsay mused. "Our host has teeth." He licked a bloody thumb. "Break them." He ordered a ram fetched. An oak log banded in iron, foundered on a wagon. 50 men lifted. Under shields they advanced through broken stakes, over fallen dogs, into yard awash with half-frozen blood. Jon watched from archway, counting heartbeats. On either side, his defenders crouched with clay pots. More wildfire, thinned still further yet deadly in flame. "Now," he said. Pots arced, smashing atop ram. Viscous green fire whooshed, kissing oak and flesh alike. The carrying men screamed, dropping burden. A crossbow bolt whickered from balcony, punching through a captain's visor. The iron-banded log clanged earth, rolling into bloodied muck where flames hurried along grain of wood. Bolton archers answered, loosing at balconies. One quarrel caught Cotter's apprentice in the eye. He toppled soundlessly from parapet, thudding beside Jon's boot. Jon dragged him aside, jaw tight. "Hold ranks," he muttered. "Hold." Ramsay ordered ladders. They came rattling on sledges, dozens of pine trunks lashed with rawhide. As Bolton infantry pressed ladders to tower walls, Mormont archers dropped stones the size of pumpkins, shattering rungs and ribs alike. Boiling water followed. Snow hissed wicked when drops struck. Bodies slid back into darkness, limbs steaming. But still they came. Hours bled together. Jon swung until his shoulders burned and lungs rasped like rusty grates. He fought atop corpse mounds, slipping, rising, thrusting. Beside him Tormund roared songs of distant giants. Each refrain ended with a Bolton skull crushed to paste. Ed moved like a shadow, short sword darting between shields to sever hamstrings. Spearwives hewed through dogs and men with matching ferocity, braids flying like black banners. Inside, Sansa oversaw triage. Maester Cotter's hands ran red to the elbows. He stitched a wildling boy whose belly was laid open. She tried not to gag at the stench of entrails, focusing instead on cool directives. More bandages, heat more wine, fetch snow for swelling. When water ran low, she organized a chain of buckets from the well despite crossbow risk. Twice arrows clanged off stone inches from her head. She did not flinch. At midnight, a horn blast wailed across the yard 3 short bursts. Sansa's breath froze in her throat. She gripped balcony rail. Below, Jon hacked through final attackers, then stumbled, head snapping up. 3 blasts, inner yard breached. He sprinted for tower base. Sansa darted down a side stair, nearly colliding with him in corridor gloom. Storerooms, she panted. They pried cellar grates and came through our own tunnels. Jon cursed. How many? For maybe 5 score. More following. He grabbed her wrist. Barricade upper stair. Archers to 3rd landing. I'll seal the cellars. They parted. Jon plunged into lower tunnels reeking of mildew. Torches guttered. Somewhere ahead steel rang on steel and men cried out. Ghosts sprinted past, red eyes blazing. Jon found chaos in the root cellar. Barrels overturned, sacks aflame, half-armored flayers wrestling stewards. A Bolton brute held a girl by hair, knife at her ear. Ghost hit him full, jaws closing on throat. Blood sprayed barrel staves. Jon met a second raider, parried, riposted. Longclaw sank through fur, mail, ribs. He wrenched free, turning to the next. A wildling youth rose behind a crate, thrusting pitchfork into a flayer's kidney. The man screamed, dropping torch into spilled grain which blossomed with fire. Smoke rolled along ceiling beams. Out! Jon shouted. All of you out! He kicked flour sacks aside, seized burning torch, plunged it into a bucket of brine. Steam hissed. Ghost herded panicked stewards up narrow steps. Jon followed last, dragging an injured brother whose leg dangled by threads. Above, Sansa's defenses held. Benches overturned, tables braced as barricade, archers firing down stairwell. Bolton corpses sprawled in awkward heaps. More climbed over, undeterred. Jon set the wounded man down, offered his sword to Ed, and began tearing torch sconce from wall. Iron grated. He wrenched free, sparks flying. We drop the beam when they're on the landing, he said. Ed nodded, grim. Bolton men surged upward, snarling. Jon waited behind barricade, pulse thundering. As foremost reached top step, he shoved the beam with all his might. Crashed, masonry shuddering. The stair gave a groan like mountains splitting. Stones slid, dust billowed, and suddenly the passage pitched inward, burying half a dozen attackers beneath tons of rubble. Screams cut off. Silence but for tumbling pebbles. Jon leaned on Longclaw, chest heaving. Ed exhaled. That buys us time. Not enough. Jon's head swam. Exhaustion dragged at limbs. He scanned the hall. Smoke seeped under doors, fire spreading. We need air. He motioned archers to shuttered arrow slits, ordering them pried wider. Somewhere above, horns blared 3 long notes. He frowned. Ghost's ears pricked. Jon ascended to roof. The night sky glowed weirdly. The wildfire bog still burned. A sullen green eye, and additional fires dotted the forest where rangers had torched supply wagons. But afar, beyond Bolton camp, another illumination climbed. Torches, hundreds, moving in disciplined columns. Jon's breath caught. Could it be? He raised a war record horn, blew a single clear note. The distant torches answered with their own trumpet call. Deep, booming, familiar. Manderley drums. He recognized the rhythm. The North remembers. A shout erupted along tower roof as archers glimpsed banners. A white merman on sea green, a giant breaking chains, the black bear of Mormont on green, Wyman's levy, Serwyn men, and Lady Mage's main strength. They had marched day and night through driving snow, drawn by raven and rumor, to lift siege. Below, Bolton lines wavered. Ramsay's face, lit by flickering torches, twisted from amusement to feral snarl. He barked at captains, but many men hesitated. They were thrice-blooded and bone-tired, supplies ablaze, half their hounds dead. Tormund clambered up beside Jon, laughter booming. "Looks like dinner arrived." Jon swallowed emotion thick as honey. "Hold the gate," he said. "When Manderley hits their rear, we push." But Manderley did more than hit. A blast of horn announced mounted knights wheeling through sleet, banners streaming. Heavy horse crashed into Bolton flank, smashing spearmen like kindling. Behind rode footmen singing the Northman's prayer, axes rising and falling. Serwyn archers lit the night with arrows. Giant Harwood stout swung an uprooted pine trunk as men scatter screamed. Ramsay rallied personal guard, hacking a path toward Jon's gate, perhaps hoping to take the Crow King's head before lines collapsed. Jon spied him, cloak whipping, eyes gleaming like shards of ice. "Tormund," he said, voice iron flat. "The bastard comes for me. Open the gate. Open." The wildling's brow shot up. "He brings 50 killers. Then we kill 50 killers." Jon descended, blood thrumming. At yard gate he ordered chains unlatched. Panels creaked outward, revealing muddy churn where Bolton ranks regrouped. Ramsay spotted the opening and spurred his charger with savage grin. Jon stepped onto churned earth as Ghost stalked ahead, hackles prickling. Snowflakes spiraled around them. Ramsay slowed 10 paces off, crimson surcoat slick with frozen gore. "Snow," he called, voice dripping mock sweetness. "King of crows, I brought a wedding gift. Your sister's flayed skin, perhaps? But you hide her like a shy bride." Jon lifted Longclaw. "Come claim your gift, then." No shout, only calm. Ramsay laughed, signaled his guard. They formed crescent. Jon's own fighters, Tormund, Ed, spearwives, Mormont shields, flooded beside him, but he raised a hand. "He is mine." Tormund blinked. "Don't be a fool, pup. I was once. No longer." Jon advanced. Ramsay dismounted in a smooth flow, blades gleaming. Twin short swords curved like smiles. His boots crunched. Ghost snarled but held position when Jon clicked tongue, an effort of iron will. They circled. Battle roared around yet seemed distant, muffled by falling snow. Ramsay feinted left. Jon mirrored. The bastard darted in, slashing low. Jon parried. Sparks. A riposte nicked Ramsay's forearm, crimson beads blossoming. "Nice toy," Ramsay jeered, rubbing blood between fingers. "Did your lord daddy buy it from a merchant?" Jon lunged. Metal rang. Ramsay retreated, but Longclaw scored mail, sending links flying. He hissed, eyes alight. "You learned some new tricks when you died, I see." He slashed sudden high-low. Jon caught first blade on guard, twisted, forced aside second. They grappled, breath mingling fog. Ramsay's knives flashed. One kissed Jon's cheek, drawing a hot line of pain. Jon headbutted, helm to brow. Ramsay reeled, staggered back, spitting blood. Cheers rose behind palisade. Sansa's voice among them, sharp with hope. Ramsay heard, too. Fury twisted his grin into a snarl. He charged, twin swords whirling like steel wind. Jon parried left, sidestepped right, pivoted. Longclaw came up under ribs, thrust clean. Ramsay's momentum carried him forward until their faces nearly touched. "Stark bitch," he croaked, blood bubbling. "I'll wear her." Jon yanked blade sideways, opening him like a curtain. Ramsay's eyes clouded. He collapsed to knees, blood steaming, then onto his back where snow turned pink. He stared at swirling sky, mouth working silent curses, until still. Silence rippled outward, broken only by distant clamor of retreating flayers. Ghost sniffed corpse, sneezed. Jon lowered sword. He felt no triumph, only weary necessity. Behind, Tormund hooped and Mormont shields slammed to boots. Bolton lines crumbled as word spread. The bastard of Bolton was dead. Panic surged. Men threw down arms, fled into forest where Manderly riders hemmed them in. Jon raised Longclaw overhead. A roar answered, rolling across yard, over battlements, through birch woods where lanterns bobbed like new stars. The sun, a weak red coin, nudged horizon, painting ice gold. Dawn. Sansa emerged from gate, skirts spattered. She took in Ramsay's corpse, then Jon's battered form. Their gazes met. Snowflakes melted on her lashes. She exhaled a breath that sounded like release, like beginning. Jon turned to gathered brothers, wildlings, Manderly levies, children of the north. His voice carried in crisp morning air. The flayed man is fallen. Queen's crown stands. He looked south toward distant fires guttering out. But winter marches still, and we have lived this night only because we fought as one. The Watch, the free, the North reborn. Remember this dawn. Carry it to every hearth from here to White Harbor. He lifted sword again. The long night comes. We meet it not as outcasts, but as a kingdom united. Cheers thundered. Drums beat. Ravens wheeled in icy sky, cawing triumph. Jon let the sound wash over him. He felt bruised, bloodied, half-frozen, and alive. Sansa stepped to his side, and together they faced the rising sun, its frail warmth touching their crowns of fur and snow and promise. Behind them, men raised banners. The black of the Watch quartered with the gray direwolf, stitched hastily by steward hands through the siege. Threadbare, uneven, beautiful. It snapped in new wind, the emblem of a realm born in night and tempered by fire, a realm that would stand or fall on the courage of those who called its harsh land home. And far north, beyond forests and frozen rivers, beyond even the pale edge of dawn's red light, blue eyes opened in shadowed glades. The dead had felt the shift, sensed a king's rising cry. They turned their silent steps toward Queen's Crown, toward the wall, toward the spark that dared to burn against endless dark. But that was still a league away, a night away. For this brief sliver of sunrise, cold though it was, hope breathed. And Jon Snow, crowned by frost and fury, allowed himself a single, quiet breath of it before turning once more to the work that would never truly end. Snow still drifted in low, lazy spirals, masking the savagery of the night just gone, when Jon Snow rode the field at Queenscrown's outskirts. Beneath the unbroken skirl of the wind, ravens picked at half-frozen carrion, and the churned mud showed frostbite where blood had pooled and cooled. The morning after battle was always the same. Hushed, funereal, a slow unfurling of pain. Yet in the hush there lingered a tremor of triumph, fragile as a candle flame. Jon dismounted where Ramsay Bolton had fallen. The snow had largely covered the bastard's corpse, save for the dark halo of congealed blood around the sunken chest. A lone sparrow perched upon the dead man's boot, picking at scraps of fur. Jon nudged the corpse with his boot to be sure no faint spark remained, but the body was stiff and cold as quarried stone. He sheathed Longclaw with a sigh that felt deeper than the wound on his cheek. Ghost circled once, scenting, then trotted to Jon's side, tail low. The cleanup would take days. He let his gaze roam the field, where Manderly and Serwyn men labored among the wildlings and black brothers, heaping Bolton dead onto pyres. Sister men sang soft dirges in the language of thens, their voices thin and bleak. Children from the free folk pitched in, dragging kindling with silent solemnity. No songs of glory here, Jon thought, only the work of the living among the fallen. Tormund came stomping through the slush, face ruddy, beard clotted with icicles. "A hell of a night," he said, clapping Jon on the shoulder hard enough to jolt sore ribs. "Lost 2 score by my count. Could be worse. Could be we're the ones being burned." Jon nodded. "We will honor them tonight. Then we move." "Move?" Tormund's brow knit. "Where in the damn frost do you plan to march now?" "Winterfell," Jon said. "Not to lay siege, to answer lords who will have questions, and to secure supplies. Lady Barbary Dustin holds the grain stores at Barrowton. Lord Ryswell may follow her lead. If they think us brigands, they will wall us out. We show them a king willing to stand in the light." Tormund spat. "Lords and their walls. You should let the free folk hunt their deer and let the lords eat their parchment. Jon managed a tired grin. If deer fed whole castles, I would. But I need grain for 10,000, come next moon's turn. He left Tormund muttering to himself and strode towards the improvised infirmary inside the tower keep. The stone corridor still carried the reek of last night's smoke and human fear, but the fires were out. Sansa waited at the threshold, sleeves rolled, hair bound back in a plain braid. Crimson speckles marred her gray wool. She wiped them to little effect. Cotter says the cellar roof may collapse, she reported before any greeting. He needs timber struts, and soon. The wounded are packed like salted herring below, and the smell. I'll send the builders, Jon promised. Then he touched her shoulder gently. You saved them last night. A brittle laugh slipped from her, half sigh, half sob. I saved enough, not all. She met his eyes, and for a heartbeat they shared the weight of those they had not saved. Then she drew a slow breath. Lord Manderly requests an audience when you can stand. He arrived with half his levies and all his cooks. He is boiling a cauldron of fish stew that could drown a direwolf. Jon almost smiled. I will see him. He left Ghost at the stairwell and descended into the cellars to pay his respects to the maester, nodding to every steward, every spearwife now stripped to bloody smocks, washing bandages in brine. The boy whose belly had been opened in the night still breathed, miraculously. Cotter had stitched him with worsted thread soaked in mead. One look at the sagging beams above told Jon the miracle might soon be undone by stone. He ordered 2 builders to collect timbers from the burned wagons. Charred or not, they would hold until proper lumber came from the Wolfswood. When he emerged into the main yard again, the morning sun had clawed its way above a leaden horizon, and a smell of hot broth drifted in the razor air. Wyman Manderly stood beside a wagon whose sides bore the green sea cow. Wrapped in so many furs he resembled a moss-covered bear. His cheeks shone apple red and his pale eyes twinkled beneath bushy brows. The great lord was using a jeweled dagger to cut chunks from a smoked haddock, dropping them into a steaming cauldron suspended above a tripod. Your Grace, he called in a voice that rolled like distant thunder. Come taste the flavor of victory. His grin was broad enough for 3 men. Jon returned the smile with care. We have many mouths to feed, my lord. I'll not steal their portion. Nonsense. My cooks brought enough fish to feed a new kingdom, and more besides. Wyman's eyes flickered at that word, kingdom, half serious, half testing. He offered a carved horn spoon. Jon tasted, found warmth, salt, faint sweetness of onions. It spread through his limbs like remembered summer. You have my thanks, and theirs, Jon said, gesturing to the line of wounded brothers waiting for bowls. But you did not ride through the night only to play cook. One must eat to fight and fight to live, Wyman declared. Yet you are right. I come to pledge Manderly swords. He lowered his voice. With Ramsay dead, the North will reshuffle faster than a Dornish gambler's deck. The Karstarks know which way the wind blows. Lord Ryswell sits uneasy. Lord Wylus Manderly. He thumped his own chest. Owes the Starks a debt of blood. And you, Lord King Snow, bear the Stark face, no matter your cloak of black. Jon glanced toward Sansa across the yard, speaking with Lady Lyanna Mormont, who barely reached Sansa's shoulder yet radiated fierce command. The Stark name lives through my sister, he said. This crown of mine was forged for the living, not for ancient houses. Wyman chuckled, low, spoken like Ned's whelp, but let us speak plain. Winterfell lies in bruised hands. A king who frees it gains more than grain. He gains the hearts of half the north and the grudging respect of the rest. March with us, and my men will drag open the gates. I will sing your anthem from White Harbor's walls. Jon weighed the offer. Queen's Crown still needed repairs. The Watch's depleted numbers could not hold the wall if he stripped them for a march. And the dead, always the dead, crept closer each night. Yet Winterfell was the key. If he failed to secure it, how long before some southern claimant seized the chaos? Or worse, The castle stores rotted while free folk starved in wind and dark? He met Wyman's sharp gaze. "We march," he said, "but not until the wounded are moved and the wall reinforced. 3 days. 3. Wyman stroked his snowy beard. "You drive a hard bargain, Snow. Or is it Stark now?" "Snow today, perhaps Stark tomorrow," Jon said. "But always Jon." Wyman barked a laugh. "Very well, Jon. 3 days." He clapped the younger man's arm, left a greasy print on black leather, and waddled off to oversee his stew like a satisfied chef-lord. The first night's pyres blazed high beyond Queenscrown's moat. Snowflakes hissed to steam in the rising heat, and sparks leapt into the starless sky, dimming against whirling ash. Jon stood beside Sansa and Tormund, the three of them ringed by a half-circle of free folk, knights watch brothers, and Northmen who had never thought to see their banners mingle. Cotter droned the words of farewell in the old tongue of the Watch, Ed translating line by line for those who did not know it. Each name fell like a stone into water, rippling through the crowd. When Runa Beartooth stepped forward to place an obsidian arrow on the pyre for her dead lover, even Tormund bowed his shaggy head. As the flames climbed, Maester's ravens swirled overhead, croaking. Jon looked up and remembered Bran, somewhere south or east on wings of weirwood sight. Did the last green seer watch this blaze, seeing his brother crowned under an iron sky? Tears stung unbidden. Jon blinked them away. Beside him, Sansa slipped her chilled hand into his. No need of words. They watched until the pyres sank to coals, then walked back into the torchlit yard where the stew cauldrons still steamed and 100 weary voices murmured of the morrow. 3 days passed in relentless toil. Builders shored up the cellar roof. Rangers rode the King's Road north and south, scattering word of Bolton's fall and Jon's pact with the Watch. Manderley cooks turned barrels of pickled cod into hearty pies. Serwyn Smiths reforged captured Bolton blades, grinding away the flayed man to leave blank steel, ready for the dire wolf or the black crow mark. Lady Lyanna Mormont drilled her 92 warriors twice daily, though half still bled from old wounds. The girl fought like a furious shadow, wooden blade dancing. Even Tormund admitted he would rather tussle a cave bear. In war councils by Smoky Hearth, Jon laid out the march. Manderley infantry first to clear the road and hold supply lines. Serwyn archers and Mormont shield maidens with the vanguard. Tormund's free folk as outriders and scouts. The Black Brothers guarding the rear, ready to wheel north or south as need demanded. Queenscrown's remaining garrison, mostly wounded and green stewards, would hold the tower behind them, bolstered by Eastwatch's small relief party led by Cotter Pine. The second night, a raven arrived from Deepwood Motte. Lady Glover offered cautious alliance if Jon could promise land to house the wildlings who had slipped through her forests. Jon wrote back by firelight, promising justice, safe passage, and fair trade. The next dawn, another bird from House Karstark, Lord Harrion, newly free by Ramsay's fall, pledged neutrality until the nature of the new crown is made plain. Sansa penned the diplomatic reply while Jon inspected the stables, praising every boy who saddled mounts with silent diligence. On the third morning, Jon broke fast with Manderley captains on cold oatcakes and salt pork. As he chewed, Ghost pricked his ears, staring north beyond the broken gate. Jon followed the gaze and froze. A single figure approached across the rutted field, a woman clad in tattered scarlet robes, her hair a stream of ember red pulled loose by the wind. A ruby glimmered at her throat. Melisandre. Jon stood, half rising from his stool. Every muscle remembered the warmth of her magic, the shock of waking from death, the first breath rasping like flame. He went to meet her halfway. "Your Grace," she greeted, voice soft as distant thunder, bowing just low enough to acknowledge a crown unseen. Snow swirled around her bare feet, yet she seemed untroubled by cold. "Why come now?" Jon asked. He saw handfuls of watchers at the walls, hands on bows but uncertain. "Because the dawn you lighted last night must spread, or be snuffed." She tilted her head. "I saw the fire in my flames, the boy king of crows, the wolves who howled to welcome him, the dead who turned their frost-kissed gaze upon that beacon." The ruby pulsed like a living heart. "We will face them," Jon said, though a chill wormed along his spine. "You will face them better with the blessings of R'hllor." She extended a pale hand. "Let the Lord of Light guide your steps to Winterfell. There, beneath the shattered weirwood, the fate of night and dawn will hinge on blood willingly shed." Jon eyed the hand but did not take it. "The last time I listened to prophecies, I died." She smiled, remote. "And yet you returned, forged anew. Death itself serves the Lord's purpose when it must." Her gaze flicked over his shoulder. "Many here fear me, smell the smoke of betrayal. But I bring no shadows today, only the truth of fire." She lowered her tone. "You cannot hold Winterfell with swords alone. You will need the hearts of men, yes, but also the favor of the living flame. Let me walk beside you." Jon heard boots crunch behind him. Sansa, cloak billowing, red hair ablaze in pale sun. She halted a stride away, eyes narrowing at Melisandre. The Red Priestess inclined her head politely. Sansa did not return the courtesy. Before Jon could answer, horns sounded from the southern ridge, 2 plaintive notes. A scout galloped in, face chalkwhite. "Riders from the Dreadfort," he cried. "A peace banner." Jon stepped past Melisandre and Sansa, walking toward the oncoming group. 6 riders bore a white flag stained with road filth. In their midst clattered an iron cage drawn by a mule. Within crouched a gaunt figure swathed in chains, head bowed. They halted. The lead rider dismounted, removed helm to reveal a pock-scarred face Jon vaguely recognized, a minor Ryswell cousin. "My Lord Snow," the rider called. "I bear a message from Lord Roose Bolton, Regent of the Dreadfort." Jon folded arms. "Speak it." "Lord Bolton announces his son's death and offers terms. Surrender claims to Winterfell, acknowledge Bolton overlordship of the North, and he will grant safe passage beyond the wall to all free folk and crows alike." The man's voice trembled despite rehearsed formality. "He offers proof of Bolton honor here." He struck the cage bars. The chained prisoner looked up. A girl's swollen face revealed eyes the color of summer sky, stark blue against bruised flesh. A northern girl, someone's daughter. A murmur swept the watchers. Sansa inhaled sharply. "That's Daisy Hornwood," she whispered. "Lord Hornwood's niece. She vanished in winter storms, years ago." Jon stepped forward until he felt the heat of Daisy's frightened breath. "Bolton honor," he said dryly. "A cage for a girl." The rider flushed. "Lord Bolton says she lives only so long as you parley. Kill her if you refuse, and he will send another." A raw hush fell. Jon's mind ticked through possibilities. Roose Bolton had been silent these months, leaving Ramsay to play the mad dog. But now the flayed lord reemerged with measured cruelty, hiding behind old etiquette. "Surrender or watch innocents die by proxy." Tormund's voice broke the stillness. "Flay the rider and send him back skinned." Bolton words need skins. Some free folk shouted assent. Jon raised a hand. "No," he looked at the Ryswell cousin. "Ride back. Tell your lord the Night's Watch kidnaps no innocents. We protect the realm even from its own bastards. Leave the girl. Take your cage." The rider hesitated, glancing at Daisy weeping silently, before nodding. They unlocked the cage, dragged her out. She collapsed at Jon's feet, shackles rattling. The mule brayed. The riders turned and kicked dust, beating northward toward the Dreadfort Road. Jon knelt, broke the girl's chains with a smith's hammer fetched hurriedly. She trembled, lips cracked. "Titch, thank you," she gasped. Sansa wrapped her cloak around Daisy's shoulders. "You're safe now." Soft words, but her eyes burned with a vengeance that made even Melisandre's flame seem chill. Jon watched the riders shrink to specks. "Roose Bolton will not wait 3 days," he murmured. "He will strike before we march." Melisandre's ruby flared. "Then you must strike first. A wolf must hunt, not be penned." Sansa met her brother's gaze. 3 days? She repeated his own vow back at him, voice carved of stone. "If Bolton marches tomorrow, we march tonight." Jon closed his eyes. In the darkness he heard the crackle of last night's pyres, smelled charred bone. He opened them and found Melisandre watching, smile ghost thin. However reluctant he remained, the path unfolded beneath his feet like a sheet of ice. Slippery, treacherous, inevitable. "Tonight," he said, "we leave Queen's Crown in Lyanna's hands, with Cotter and a garrison enough to hold a siege. The rest ride." Tormund grinned, testing the edge of a captured pike. "Good. I was getting soft on savory pies." He stamped off to rouse his spearwives. Sansa pressed Daisy toward a healer, then followed Jon inside, where maps lay waiting. They bent over parchment, plotting routes. Manderley and Serwyn through the King's Road, Jon and Tormund's advance guard cutting cross-country via the Wolfswood, Lady Lyanna skirting the hills with her lightest shield-bearers. Melisandre stood by the hearth, murmuring prayers that made the flames twist into unseen shapes. When the council ended, Jon lingered. He stared at the coals, remembering Winterfell's gods would pond frozen glassy under moonlight when he was but a boy. Ned's stern profile mirrored in that dark water, speaking softly of duty, honor. Somewhere deep, Jon felt the old wounds ache. The question of parentage, the shadow of being less than trueborn. But in the same breath, he felt fresh blood inch along last night's cut on his cheek, reminding him he was real, present, chosen by men and women who had bled for him. Night fell swiftly under bruised clouds. Riders gathered by the broken gate, horses stamping, breath pluming. Sansa came to bid farewell. She wore mail now, stark gray cloak over black leather jerkin, dagger at her hip. "Keep to the stores," Jon told her for the 5th time. "Queen's Crown cannot fall." "It won't," she answered. "And when you take Winterfell, send a raven. I'll march tomorrow with the next column." He clasped her wrist. "Be careful. Roose Bolton is snake quiet." She squeezed his hand hard enough to hurt. "So am I," she said. He vaulted onto his gray courser. Ghost trotted near, red eyes shining. Melisandre approached, placing 2 fingers on the horse's mane. "Ride swift, King of Winter. Let no shadow touch you save the one you cast." Her ruby winked like a beating pulse. Jon nodded once, then he wheeled and signaled the advance. Tormund's warhorn boomed, long and low. The gates yawned, and the host spilled forth. Black cloaks, direwolf standards, green sea cows, bears, and ragged free folk banners stitched from wolf pelts and faded crimson cloth. They rode into a night bright with frost, the air so cold it rang like glass. Behind them, Queen's Crown's torches dwindled to a distant glimmer. Ahead stretched leagues of snow-clad hills and black pine, the silent witness of all northern wars. Somewhere beyond those hills lay Winterfell, its walls dark, its hearth still under the rule of a flayed man. Jon held Longclaw across his lap and whispered to the wind, "Father, guide me. Robb, ride beside me. Bran, wherever your eyes wander, watch our backs." Ghost howled, high and quiet, a note that floated between the stars. The riders answered with rattling shields, a promise hammered into the frozen road. Thus the king of the Night's Watch led his fledgling kingdom south, deeper into the storm, with dawn no more than a pale rumor at the far edge of the world. The dead massed in the far north, drawing breath that froze the wind. The living gathered their courage like tinder, waiting for the spark that might yet banish the dark. And in the silent sky above, the first thin veil of shifting color rippled, an aurora pale green and violet, whispering of old magic and older prophecies, the cry of ice and fire entwined. In 3 short winter days, men would die by the score beneath the shattered towers of Winterfell. Yet for this single heartbeat of time, the world hovered upon the blade's edge, and the hoofbeats of wolves beat tattoo against the soul of the north.